Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 18th, 2023 Worcester Township Board of Supervisors business meeting. Would you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My name is Rick DeLello. I'm the chairman of the board. To my left is Lou Betts, who's our vice chair. To my right is Steve Quigley, our third member. Over on the side table up front, we have Wendy McKenna, who is the A-team, coming in for Bob Brandt from the solicitor's office. And we also have Nicole Quagliarello. Did I say it right? Close? One of these times I'll get it correct, but Nicole is our finance director. She'll be talking about the budget a little later tonight. On the back table, I have Sean Halbum, who's our township manager, and Amanda Lafty, who is our assistant township manager. First and foremost, does anybody have any informational items for the board tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this meeting is being video recorded for future broadcast, and the Board of Supervisors held an executive session on October 2nd to discuss personnel. No decisions were made.
Thank you, Sean. First item on our agenda is public comment. We do ask that you limit your public comment to 5 minutes. Does anybody have any public comment for the board this evening? Cameron.
Cameron Barrett, 3151 Methacton Avenue.
Yeah.
Good?
You are good?
Okay, so here we are again. It's been probably a year and a half, 2 years. So this township has a strong reputation for hiring incompetent and underqualified people. Credibility is the word we're going to go off of tonight. Sean Halbum, township manager, called me Friday and used the word, "I'm not going to engage in this conversation over the phone," which I think and believe is his job, to engage the public and the township residents.
I'm getting old, it's hard for me to hear. You just slow down a little bit?
Yep.
And when you go through the mic, it gets a little...
Okay.
Thank you.
Is the green light on the mic just so it gets on the recording?
I think the button's over there. I remember they were messing with it the other week at the zoning hearing board. So
Okay.
I have now been trying to build an accessory structure at my house for over a year. Some of the supervisors are aware of my situation. It's been dirty, it's been political, and I don't know why. I had all my boxes checked down to the P's, the Q's. I've talked to the old zoning officer, who's now the fire marshal. I've talked to the supervisors. I was not asking for any favors. I wasn't breaking any rules. I had every box checked. I did exactly what this township gave me a packet to do, filed it, thought I was going to have no issues. I get a long email chain back and forth, primarily with Amanda, the assistant manager, between my engineer and her, and a little bit of CKS, which at the time was Joe Nolan,
Yep.
the president. So I'm not going to read all these emails, but more of the story is she was very incompetent with her zoning knowledge. My engineer was polite and went back and forth between 150-167 and 150-67, which we finally came to a head and figured out that that was the ordinance that I was breaking. Then we went over that the building was too big, which there's no zoning that says the building's too big. That's not a professional or a thing that's in our zoning. Then the building was too tall. We proved that that was incorrect. Then we said the building was over 20 feet. That's incorrect. It's about midpoints of roofs. We're not going to get into that. So after back and forth, not getting answers, calling, showing up the township, I finally get a denial letter with the incorrect 150-167. Finally, it is corrected to 150-67, and I have an email confirmation between that, because my lawyer would could not find out what rule I was breaking. So Amanda, I guess, has the authority, I guess, to just give out Bob Brand's cell phone number, and gave me Bob Brand's cell phone number, which then now is costing the township dollars at probably $300 an hour, because that's what my lawyer costs, and says, just have your lawyer contact the solicitor. So, fast forward about a month, 2 months, I show up, I come to the zoning hearing board. The first words out of the mouth, and Supervisor Betts was there, out of the head honcho of the zoning hearing board was, "Why are you here?" in confusion. They had no idea why I was there. The reason they were confused is because I was breaking no rules. I had every box checked. I spent all the money for topographical surveys, pits, all that nonsense. So finally, we get it to go through. So I called, I was unaware of a 30-day appeal process between the zoning hearing board and getting my permit, which is fine. So unbeknownst to me, I called last Tuesday and was told Amanda's not in the office. Called Wednesday, Amanda's not in the office. Called Thursday, Amanda's not in the office. So my direct comment was, if Amanda was to pass away, how would one get a permit in Worcester Township? Nothing. Didn't yell. It was Mary Ann, the older woman that works front desk, super nice lady. I get a call Friday from Sean Hallbaum. You're inquiring about your permit? Yes. Well, you have to wait 30 days. I said, that's not my fault that you guys dragged your feet. And Sean proceeds to say, well, I'm not going to engage in that conversation. So we're going to engage in that conversation now because you choose to not engage me on the phone. So I will give you your 30 days. That's legality of the world. I don't care. But we're going to talk about how we drug my feet for the last year and cost me over $15,000 in lawyer fees. And God knows what it cost the township and their lawyers between the actual solicitor for the zoning hearing board and the solicitor for the township, because my lawyer went back and forth emails long, because I have bills from my lawyer between your guys' lawyer and my lawyer. So one, who authorizes them to start that? Because really it should be the zoning hearing board. And why is it that he doesn't know the zoning and we're paying him $135,000 a year? So I then, I followed up with my regional district supervisor, Lou, who I know is a friend of mine.
Yep.
I said, can you please help me do this the right way? I'm not going to throw F-bombs out there and go throw a tantrum down at the township. So we went down there. He said, can we have a quick meeting? And Sean and Amanda said, I cannot enter the room. So I just stood outside.
Okay.
But the door is not very thick, so I could hear everything they're saying. So the exact two comments was, if we let him build this structure, then everyone else is going to want to build this structure. That was comment one. And two, they talked about me running a business out of my house. Okay, you can try to prove that after the fact I build my building, but you can't accuse me of trying to run a business out of my house before the fact. That's illegal. So we're going to jump onto the fact that every day he goes and signs a little piece of paper to get his miles, and he drives around the township. First off, what is he looking for? Because I go on Hollow Road, the speed signs are all faded, and the reflectors don't work, and the trees are overgrown. Because again, we're not going to get into that. The township roadmaster is horrible. But you're going to drive between here, the township building, and here, and you're going to see a guy running a full-blown construction company, and I know you know exactly what I'm talking about, out on Valley Forge Road. But you're going to accuse me of running a business out of my house. Drive by my house. It's beautiful. It's mowed. It's mulched. I have 3 dogs. I have a Peterbilt RV in the driveway right now because I thought I was going to have my building by now. Sorry, I usually keep that off-site. But I keep my stuff nice. My neighbor, on the other hand, has RVs, tent buildings, but it doesn't bother me. You know why? Because that's his property. I don't care if he walks around naked. It's his private property. So I want to know why that I am consistently, we're back to this, harassed at this township. And we're going to bring up my burn permit too, because we're going to get to the bottom of that.
Well,
so why don't you answer on what we just talked about first?
So a couple things. Yep. So first off, you're entitled to all your public comment.
Yep.
And you're certainly entitled to that. I can't answer all your questions, Cameron, because I don't have the information on all the items that you
You'll get all the
brought before
copies.
me.
Make
So,
sure of it.
Well, I know that you'll deliver the copies. I have no concern with that.
Yep.
Ultimately, What I can tell you, what I know about your zoning situation is certainly our solicitor was involved and ultimately supported the zoning determination that our zoning officer made, which is why it went before the zoning hearing board. I understand when you attended that meeting, ultimately, there was certainly questions that were raised at the zoning hearing board regarding, as the individual commented, wasn't sure and understood why you were there. I did hear that information after the fact. I can tell you we can look at it. There's a couple of things. One is I'm not going to talk about personnel issues in a public meeting under any circumstances. And I'll certainly defer to either one of my supervisors, but we won't talk about personnel issues in a public meeting. That's simply not anything that I'm going to do. We can certainly take a look at what's taken place. I can tell you that I've been a supervisor for 6 years. I've never once made any effort to single you out on anything that's come before our board. I know there's been some disagreements on items in the past. There have been on different things, but there's been certainly nothing that I've done, certainly nothing that Steve's done that I'm aware of, certainly nothing that Lou's done that said, hey, let's single out this individual for any reason. We don't do that. I'm not saying that
Well,
you're,
there's singling out going on, so let me just jump on
but
to,
hold on. You're
I
entitled,
gotta-
no, time out.
Give me a minute.
Just time out. You're entitled to 5 minutes of public comment. Okay, we're not going to take
yeah,
any past that. I don't want to take your time away from you,
Yep.
but there's certain things that we're not going to have a time to discuss today during this meeting.
yeah, that's
Just in a
fine.
practical
I have
sense.
one more thing.
That's fine.
So, we're gonna fast forward to today. So,
Okay.
I got an answer from last Friday that I have 30 days to appeal, or 30 days till somebody can appeal my decision, which brings me to the 26th, which is
Okay.
next Thursday. So, I get an email at 7 o'clock this morning from Amanda saying that they are CSK, who has been in this fight the whole time,
Right.
Joe Nolan, I know he's retired now, says that I now need my trees that the zoning hearing board said, which is actually not required to get put on my plan, an infiltration soil test, and my setbacks are
Okay.
not properly marked. Okay, so I have an email from Joe Nolan right here saying I don't need an infiltration test.
Sure.
So now, we're gonna, at the 11th hour, I have guys coming next week to dig. We're gonna now start saying, oh, we need an infiltration test, we need trees on your topographical survey, your setbacks aren't marked on your survey, so I'm gonna give you copies before I leave.
Fair enough.
$7,000 later, the setbacks are marked on my thing, so I don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, so please explain to me why, again, what does my permit fee get me for $365 if they can't take the effort that I did today to just go right back in my emails and go print, print, print? It's all here. So now here I am wasting my time
Sure.
again. Again. So let me just make sure you have these copies. All the numbers that are hard to read, I get you an email copy.
Thank you.
Fair enough.
So that's that, public comment. We're just making sure that the township residents are very aware that the township manager and assistant manager are incompetent and do not know zoning laws. You can say, I know you're gonna say, don't talk bad on our people, just like Dave Cornish, who was incompetent and wasn't qualified.
Well, Cameron, I respectfully ask you not to,
The word incompetent is not offensive.
I
Incompetent
understand,
is a professional word for somebody that does not know what they're doing.
I hear you. You've had your opportunity in
So
terms of that.
last comment, 10 seconds, is what is the status of my burn fine? And has it been retracted? Because I need a letter. If not, my lawyer will, again, it's
Sure.
gonna cost more money. I need a letter saying that that has been rescinded. And
Okay.
if you're not willing to do that, like you haven't been,
It's not my decision to make. It's not this board's decision to make.
whose board is it? Because every time I
It's-
talk to the solicitor about it, it's not a legal fine that you guys gave me.
I will get you an answer on that, Cameron, but my understanding is this board, because we've tried, I know Steve made an effort to take care of it a year and a half ago. And
Well, he tried to pay it, sorry.
Well,
Steve.
but he also was we were trying to resolve the issue, and we were told that as a board, we didn't have the authorization.
You
to do
never
that.
told me that. You said
No, no.
verbatim, I will not rescind what Dave Cornish gave you because you said Dave Cornish is qualified as a fire marshal, and I proved
Well-
you wrong about that.
Well, we're not going to discuss that. That's, again,
So that's next on the
respectfully.
agenda. So if you could get me an
Respectfully.
answer by next month, I'm inquiring
Sure.
about my fire.
Fair enough.
Perfect.
Fair enough.
Mr. Barrett, rather than, the bonfire issue was very confusing to, I think, all of us at the time, just what you brought up. They had a big one, you had a little one where the problem was who reported it, who didn't report it.
It had nothing to do
I
with
looked
the
into it and
size.
never got an answer. So we can look at it again, but, without Mr. Ryan being here, not saying that we can look into it somehow, but I think Rick said he'll look into it the best he can.
Do the best I can. I'll have an
I
answer
asked
for
for
you
that a
next
year
month.
ago, and I still didn't get a straight answer. You see what I'm saying? Like, this was over a year ago. I said you were going to give me an answer. So I would either get a letter saying, we're sorry, that was a mistake, or here's a letter saying, we are going to follow through, and I would like to fight it in court. I am asking you how I can fight it in court. That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
'Cause I don't need if it's legal, it had a Worcester letterhead. I need something saying, because I don't want that on my.
Understood.
Okay, so
Fair enough.
30 days. We'll see you next month.
I'll be here. We do appreciate the comments, even when they don't agree with us. That's how life works sometimes. No worries at all. So does anybody else have any public comment for the board this morning, this afternoon, this evening?
Before you go on, Rick, I just want to go on record that I was at the zoning hearing board, and Mike LaBorde, chair, as an attorney, also stated that the comment was, I don't know, there's nothing from me, he sat in this chair, as a matter of fact, there's nothing from here to give you a variance on. So there's a lot of challenges in this. I think we need to fix this in the future to identify terminology. So I'll let it go with that.
Fair enough.
Just to follow up to Lou's comment, I think Lou and I both essentially ran for the same thing because of the inconsistency in the township, the way that things were done, that certain people were treated certain ways and they had to jump through hoops, and other people, things were streamlined. So Cameron, I take your concerns very seriously, and we will look into it quickly. I just have a problem that, knowing the history, how the zoning hearing board handled the situation, I thought it was a go for the project. And now what you're saying tonight, some roadblocks are being put in there, and that's something, once again, Mr. Betts certainly knows from his business over there, some of the things that weren't done quite right. And I think we as a board have really tried to streamline the process and make things fair for people. I think we don't make agreements outside the public eye. That's something that was done before. In the past, they had arrangements and agreements to sick the dogs on people, and I never liked that. For the almost 50 years I've been involved in things here in the township, and certainly the almost 20 years sitting up here. So I take your comments very seriously, and we'll look into it and try to see what's happening. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any public comment for the board? Seeing none, we'll move forward, starting with our official action items for tonight. We're going to start with the consent agenda. First and foremost, board members, does anybody wish to remove any items from our consent agenda?
I do not.
Okay. Then does somebody want to make a motion on the consent agenda?
So I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is the treasurer's report, the monthly reports of September of '23, the bill payment for September of '23 for $1,705,684.30, and the September '23 business meeting minutes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to add just one comment. The bills are a little high this month, but that's because we paid several $100,000 for our road program. The bill came due on that, so that's sort of why that number is a little higher than we typically see in terms of the bill payment. But it has been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have ordinance 2023-296, which is going to be an ordinance establishing speed limits on certain township roads, including Grable Mill Road, Landis Road, and Hollow Road. Who gets the pleasure of this one? Wendy?
So, as I think everyone is aware, the township engineer conducted a traffic or speed study to determine whether it was appropriate to amend speed limits on certain roads in the township. And as a result of that, this ordinance was authorized by the board for advertisement back on July 26, 2023. So I have just a few items here to run through.
Okay.
The first item I have is what I'll call Board Exhibit 1, which is the meeting minutes of July 26, authorizing advertisement of the ordinance. Then B2 is the legal notice, which is required to be published pursuant to the second-class township code. Exhibit B3 is the proof of publication, verifying that the public notice was in fact published on October 11th, 2023. Exhibit B4 is an email to the Montgomery County Law Library of October 10th, transmitting a copy of the attested ordinance to the law library, which is required under the second-class township code. And then B5 is the ordinance itself, which is the ordinance establishing speed limits on certain roads in the township. The ordinance provides that the speed limit on Kribel Mill Road between Mill Road and Water Street Road shall be 25 miles per hour. Landis Road, the entirety of Landis Road will be 25 miles per hour. And Hollow Road will be 35 miles per hour from Mill Road to Hebner Road and 25 miles per hour from Hebner Road to Skibback Pike. So that is what the ordinance provides. And as I indicated, the necessary study was done by the township traffic engineer, so the ordinance is ready for adoption.
Thank you, Wendy. So a little additional commentary here is that we regularly get asked by residents, speeding in the township is one of the biggest concerns and pieces of feedback that we get on many of our roads. And this is sort of the end of a process on some of those speed studies that sort of looked at particular roads and areas. Landis in particular has been one. Anybody who's attended past meetings, we've had residents that have come on that particular road as a pass-through road. It gets a lot of speed and a lot of issues ultimately. But so the end is to sort of, we don't run speed tests on literally every road that we have, but we take selectively different speed tests, and this is the outcome to sort of try to make those roads safer at the end of the day, try to do a little better job of controlling the speed on those roads and controlling safety. I know that Lou, you've on a few streets, you've asked specifically about different things. It's been an area that you've had some particular interest in, and certainly it's come up in our meetings, but that's sort of this is sort of an outcome of, those different speed studies and conversations that we've had. Does any board member have any specific questions on either the ordinance or the process or these particular roads?
I do. Wendy, again, I guess McMahon is our company that performed all this, and they're, I'm sure, been at this a number of years. So they determine the speed limit as our back roads of Worcester. They determine whether it's 25, 35, 30. I mean, they identify that. So I guess they have a good history of doing that. So I guess unless anybody challenges that, and the public challenge this at all?
Frankly, it would be difficult to challenge. Somebody would have to go out and provide data that their study was incorrect.
Are there being tickets issued on these roads to identify that, well, if there is no speed limit, you can go as fast as you want?
This is posting the speed limit.
I understand that, but prior to this,
I don't know.
you don't know that answer. Okay. All right. Any
But
questions?
ultimately, they're taking the speed study, like they're taking all the data, right?
I understand, but
yeah.
Pennsylvania's funny. If there's a speed limit sign, you go 2,000 miles an hour. I mean,
Well.
so, I mean, it's kind of interesting how this all works. But Steve, you got any questions?
I think we've had a number of residents come in here, some for 15 years, complaining about the speed limits, especially the Landis Road area and some of the problems associated with that. And once again, we have rural country roads, and our Valley Ford Road corridor is always backed up, so people use all the side roads. And the people living on these rural roads have a concern, and it is a safety issue from the kids on the school bus, waiting there in a school bus on these very narrow roads. And with the use of cell phones and people talking, if we just slow the cars down on some of these roads, hopefully we prevent some of these accidents from happening.
Right.
It's just a situation, we've always said, Lou, for a number of years, that, we have unmarked roads, and unmarked roads, the cars can travel at a high rate of speed. So we're just trying to limit some of these access roads and reduce the speed just for, pure safety reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I don't have any additional comments. I'll certainly entertain a motion if somebody wants to make one. I think it's a good move here to sort of clean up those particular roads, and we'll go from there.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance of 2023-296, establishing speed limit signs on certain township roads, including Crable Mill, Landis, and Hollow.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Bless you.
Bless you.
Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have Resolution 2023-19. That's going to be a resolution to submit a grant application to the Commonwealth Financing Authority for engineering design work for the Crable Mill Bridge and Roadway Improvement Project. Sean, a little more information on this one for us?
Yes, so this is another McMahon project, our traffic engineer. This project contemplates basically every possible scenario for update and redesign of the Crable Mill Bridge, including the roadway leading to it from Water Street Road. So the sum of the grant is high. It's $900,000 is the amount of the grant that this application would seek. However, that amount, if it was only partially awarded, the way the project is being designed by McMahon could be scaled down to fit a lower size budget award. So this is sort of a throw it against the wall and see what sticks approach.
Fair enough. And as some who have attended the meetings, we had a work session about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, so the Crable Mill Road Bridge, it's an area of the township that's been closed for basically a generation. And one of the things that we felt was important, that we get some kind of a plan in place to deal with that in some way, shape, or form. And we had a work session to talk about what options might exist to do there. This is one of the outcomes of that, is that if we decide to ultimately do something, it's not going to be inexpensive. So we want to see if there's grant money to help allay any costs that might roll forward for that type of an engagement. So ultimately, this is an opportunity to see if we can get some dollars to take a look at that. I know that was certainly an area that you had a lot of concern with, Lou, for several years. So hopefully we can get some grant money and we have an opportunity to do something there. Does anybody, go ahead.
You're missing a big thing out of that. You're forgetting the Dr. Malik that started with the bridge over the River Kwai 20 years ago, about this bridge.
Well, I'm trying to give you your due. I mean, this is certainly,
Like the movie, and Steve brought it up as a good movie, and hey, yes, I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, the other issue that we've discussed regarding this bridge is it's old, and that whole area floods with storms. It's a bus route there where the buses come down the hill and turn into the high school.
correct.
And the bridge itself is old. The flow path of the water going under the bridge, with all the trees lying there in the creek, it just backs everything up to Marybrook Road and further up. It just becomes a large pond. And it's hard for the school buses to traverse that when it's a foot or two of water at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The school buses are coming down there. It also becomes a safety issue. It's gradually gotten worse over the years as more trees fall and the whole area gets clogged up. We've had complaints from a number of the residents there
Right.
regarding that. So it's a combination of opening the bridge and a stormwater management problem that we're trying to address at the same time.
Correct. And what we were trying to certainly get arms around was saying, what could we do? What might be options? Would we look at making it just pedestrian friendly? Would you look to make it, fully for emergency vehicles? Would you look at rerouting the road completely? you have sort of the zigzag with the road there, and we had to start somewhere to say, okay, well, what are some of the options that we can consider? And certainly stormwater, was a huge issue last year. They are not quite as bad this year just because we haven't had quite as many rains this year as we've had in the last couple of years, but certainly an overarching concern and something we want to get into the budget so that we can make sure that, these types of projects are then capitalized properly and then have a chance to be dealt with when,
Mr. Chairman, just one correction. You mentioned we haven't had the rain that we've had in the past years, but if I could bring your attention, I think the last 7 Saturdays we've had rain. You may not be,
No,
may
I'm
not interrupt your golf game, but
No, I'm fully aware of that as residents think I'll use a polite word, but they think I'm a lunatic to be knocking on doors in rainstorms to ask for votes. But ultimately, yes, I am fully aware of the rainy Saturdays and the beautiful Sundays that we've had for the last several weeks. And I was glad to hear that we were able to get the pumpkin lit, even though it was several days late over at Merrymead as well. But you are correct. We certainly have had rain, but not quite the volume that we had in the last couple of years. So ultimately, we're back to a motion, if you want to make one.
We're going to make a motion on Resolution 2023-19, and this is a resolution to submit the grant. And this is, so we're submitting to apply for free money
Yes.
to pay for this engineering, some construction, whatever. But mostly, I guess, the stormwater is a bigger concern too. So it's part of that. It's not just the construction engineering.
Right, this is,
It's a combination.
it's a bunch of things. What we're starting with here, as Sean said, I think the technical term was throw something against the wall and hope some things stick, but ultimately starting with some grant money to fund various things that might sort of arise out of trying to address that. And that would sort of be all of the things that we've talked about at various meetings, whether it's the working on the bridge, whether it's working on the stormwater, whether it's working on, it sort of falls all under that umbrella. But it starts with looking for the opportunity for some grant money that might start allaying any costs that would be associated with dealing with it.
So again, I'll repeat, and I'll make to approve Resolution 2023-19 for the engineering design work, and again, it's the grant application for this Crable Mill Bridge roadway improvement project.
and I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up to that, I'd like to thank my fellow board members for working with Mr. Bradford's office and his staff. We're very fortunate to have Matt, a member of our community, and his office has trying to help the township as much as they can with some of these grants. He certainly is aware of the safety issues around the high school, and he's been working. His office has, I guess, reached out to the board in different ways to try to encourage it to go forward with it, but we have some other expenses that may not be incurred, may be incurred due to the size of the bridge and the compared to what Mr. Bradford works, the scope of the work may not be that great.
Correct. There's always little wrinkles with those
There's
things.
always little wrinkles in the grant application.
But as long as we keep Matt as a resident, I think he likes to help us, and we like that he likes to help us. Okay, so next up we have, so Wendy, can we do these, what's the best way to do this? Which we have 9, if my math is right. So we have the Valley Forge
Right.
Road corridor, stormwater management facilities, easements, and various things for 9 different properties.
It's 8, if I
I got 8, Rick.
All right, did one get taken off?
saying,
Can I just not?
Can we just read they're mostly Valley Forge, or I guess just read the addresses and
Yes,
just,
so this is 8. There are 8, and maybe if I can just give you a quick, like a broad, an overview of all 8.
okay, that's fine.
And then we can sort of bundle that into a single motion, is that fair?
I think that's fine.
All right,
So I'll run through them. There are 8 properties that the property owners have executed various documents for the Valley Forge Road Corridor Improvement Project. There are deeds of dedication, temporary construction easements, and stormwater management easements. So I'll quickly run down the property addresses and the documents that have
Fair
been
enough.
executed, and that we will need a motion for authorization for the township to execute and accept those documents. So the first one is property at 3045 Woodland Avenue, owned by Gregory and Danielle Swabowitz, and that is a stormwater management facilities easement. The next property is 1300 Valley Forge Road, and there are actually two tax parcel numbers there. The property is owned by David W. Reeves, and we have two temporary construction access easement agreements and two deeds of dedication. The next one is 1301 Valley Forge Road. That's owned by Ralph and Marlene Gaudio, and that is a stormwater management facilities easement and a deed of dedication. Next is Allison and Christopher Donato are the owners of 1261 Valley Forge Road, and that is a deed of dedication. The next property is 1515 Valley Forge Road. That is owned by the estate of Mary Louise Graham, and there are two temporary construction access easement agreements and two stormwater management facilities easement agreements and two deeds of dedication regarding that property. The next property is 3019 Stump Hall Road. The owner is Nancy Bickle, and that is a temporary construction easement. Next is 2023 Stump Hall Road, owned by Donald and Sally House, and that is a temporary construction and access easement agreement. And finally, 1428 Valley Forge Road is owned by Nancy M. Tuckey. That is a deed of dedication. So those are all the documents. We are seeking authorization for execution and acceptance by the commission.
Thank you, Wendy. So I'm going to give it to Lou to make the motion in a second, but just for the audience, we've had these for the last several months. Every month there's been a couple. This is a larger list than normal, but these, we've been working on a previous grant of $700,000 or $750,000 that allowed for engineering to make some changes and improvements along Valley Forge Road, including a traffic signal at Woodland, as well as other turn lanes around Stump Hall Road, and basically from Germantown Pike across to Skipback Pike to make road improvements. And there's small little slices of properties that we're taking as part of that overall project, minimal disturbance if we can, and these are the residents that have signed on to say, yes, you can do that. So I'm going to give it to you, Lou, to sort of make the motion that wraps all of the addresses that Wendy laid out for us.
I'm going to do that right before I said that.
Sure.
I just identify some of the things you said, and this project is going to take a while. And two, it's improved, they're not widening the road, they're improving the shoulder and the stormwater management. And again, you're saying from Germantown Pike all the way to Skipback. The bigger concern, I guess, and I'm hoping they start with this, is that intersection on Stump Hall as far as the traffic light. So, did they give you this is the beginning process of this whole?
Well, correct. So anytime you start these things, this is certainly what we would envision would be a multi-year kind of a process. There's funding that needs to be lined up, and it
could be 10 years.
It could be a while.
Questions. I mean,
Correct. There's no ground that's being broken on this in 2023. There's nothing. I mean, this is, if it's a 10-step process, this is step 2. We've done the engineering work and laid it out, and now we're, step 2 is the various, all of these various easements that we need to do, and then it's, rounds of funding and different things to nudge it along as quick as you can, but none of these things are quick.
Government works slow. It's the acquisition for a lot of shoulder money, apparently. They're widening the road a little bit. But anyway, I'll make a motion that we approve 3045 Woodland Avenue, 1300 Valley Forge Road, 1301 Valley Forge Road, 1261 Valley Forge Road, 1428 Valley Forge Road, 1515 Valley Forge Road, 3019 Stump Hall, 3023 Stump Hall, identifying everything that, as Wendy has said, as far as our dedication, to, I guess, acquire the easements for this.
To execute on all the documentation appropriate to that. Will that work? Okay. Okay, so there's the motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, so this might just be, so here's where I think I got confused, is that we also have a motion authorizing work authorization for $7,000 for preparation of a grant application for the Commonwealth Financing Authority local share account funds for bridge design at Kriebel Mill Road and Water Street Road. Is that still an agenda item, Sean, that we have to?
Excuse me,
Okay.
my mic was.
So this is, so we authorize the grant application, and this is authorizing the dollars to actually
money to do it.
The
money
money
to
to
actually
pay
do that.
McMahon for the.
That's why I thought there was 9. It was, mine were out of order. Okay. Got it.
So we're gonna spend money to ask for money.
We're spending money to ask for money, but we're only spending pennies to hopefully get dollars.
I'm with you, it just seems like.
There's no free lunch, Mr. Betts.
Lou, I'm in the wrong business. I should be an engineer. I should be an engineer in the next life.
The attorneys and the engineers are making all the money on this one, I guess, but anyway, I'm gonna make a motion to, no offense, man. I'll make a motion to approve the authorization for the amount of $7,000 for the grant application Commonwealth Financing Authority for the design of the Kriebel Mill Road and Water Street Road project.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, so. Am I at the right place here? We're at the motion to authorize execution on an agreement of sale, Sean? I just want to make sure I haven't lost my place.
Nope, we are at N, I believe, in the pro forma.
So where do we want to start with this, Sean? Do you want to give us a little bit of, where do you want me to take it? Or?
That's your prerogative.
So I'll grab it, and you fill in whatever I did incorrectly when it comes to that. So, so here's the skinny. So a couple years ago, if you remember, we put in place an open space plan where we codified specifically the idea of wanting to preserve land, wanting to find ways to preserve land, had some specific goals, and for the past, one of the things that we talked about was saying if we could sort of codify the program, the notion of if you build it, they will come. If we can sort of put some structure to it and give residents opportunities, we might find opportunities. And I think Steve, and we've referenced this a few times, Steve made the comment that saying, we don't know what we want to buy, but nothing's off the table. We would look at any opportunity that came before us, and we'd see if we could take some action on that. So the other thing we talked about is saying, sometimes these are very discrete matters. You don't do land transactions in public meetings. You just, but we have to discuss them in public meetings. So there's really tricky ways to go about that, ultimately. We were approached by a property owner that has a parcel of land that we could probably reach with a good pitching wedge from here. It's about 100 yards to the left. So the Griffin family has a beautiful parcel of land. You pass it depending, you up and down Valley Forge Road. We got a picture or anything, Sean? Do we happen to have a picture? Well, it's a beautiful strip of 9 acres of perfectly green and perfectly level and perfectly pristine land. We had an opportunity. They came before us, and we made a deal. And we're tonight going to talk about, as a board, acquiring that parcel of land and moving forward with our commitment to preserve open space when we can. We think it's a beautiful property. We think it's ideally located where it is, and the opportunity was there, and we're going to talk about taking it, I guess is.
Yep. Well, Mr. Chairman, there's a number of pieces of property that have come to the township's attention in the past year. and the process works very slowly. And once again, we've been sitting on this for a while, trying to negotiate things back and forth. And just let the public know, we are working on this initiative, as Mr. DeLello mentioned. We're trying to acquire land when and where we can. So this is, the pictures there, it's a pristine property along Valley Forge Road that I'll let you finish, Mr. DeLello.
To get my cheat sheet. I figure out where I put my cheat sheet, my notes. So the Griffin family has owned this parcel of land for over 80 years. They've been great stewards to this land, and this particular property has had very limited ownership over many, many years. It actually goes back, and I have to trust Mr. Griffin that he's given us good data here, but my understanding is it goes back to Henry Rittenhouse. And it used to be a farmstead going back to 1727, according to the data we have, and I'm not sure, don't quote me on the exact year, but it goes back to the beginning of Worcester. So Henry Rittenhouse was an individual that was one of the founding members to apply for township status for Worcester Township in 1733. So this is a parcel of land that has a long historic component to the township, and then, you know, in a very practical sense, it's beautiful green space for us in a part of the township where we haven't historically preserved tons of property. So it was a combination of those elements. There was a desire, and one of the other things we've talked about, Steve, in these meetings is when somebody wants to sell a parcel to a municipality, there's a lot of rules that you need to follow. You can't just pick any magic number and say, well, oh, that's what you want? Well, we can just cut a check for that. We are governed, for lack of a better word, to what we can spend ultimately. And we had to go through a process where the land is appraised, and I can guarantee you 1,000% that this landowner could have gotten more in the free market than what they've agreed to in terms of giving us an opportunity to acquire the property. It was important to them that it not be developed. You know, that was one of their driving elements, and we were grateful that they came and asked. We were grateful that we could sort of slow walk it, and they didn't change their mind and decide that they wanted to take it out into the open market where they absolutely could have gotten quite a bit more at the end of the day. So, Lou, do you have any thoughts, comments, ideas, things you want to share on this one? This is over on Worcester West, if you will.
It's 100 feet from here.
It is.
That's 500 feet from here. But anyway, it's the Griffith property on Griffith Road, and I think it's a great purchase and addition to this property here, this community hall building. So I'm hoping we have a good purpose for it. I guess we have to go through the process of land planning when we acquire it. But I'm glad the Griffith family has gave us the opportunity to buy it.
So, Steve, you any other comments you want to do?
Mr. Chairman, in conjunction with this, is the Old Dutchy Church that came to the township's attention, and you spearheaded the effort to acquire that. And that's one of the real historical buildings in the township. And I think if we could just address that when we're doing this, that we've acquired that. The township didn't know it was up for sale. We saw the sign like everybody else,
Right.
and we jumped on it. It was something that we didn't think to go. So you could address that.
Sure. So the Dutchy Church it's another small little parcel that's down Valley Forge Road. That church goes back to 1865 or 6, and forgive me, I don't have the exact year, Steve, but it was, a historic. So as the saying goes, is once it's gone forever, and we don't always have an opportunity to stop when things happen. This one was, to your point, we saw our for sale sign and said, time out, what's going on here? We immediately reached out to the Historical Society and said, we'd like to take it, and we did. That one has ties to the Underground Railroad, where it actually has tunnels underneath there, which is kind of, you go underneath the floor and you can see that it was used for a variety of things, but one of them is that the story goes, and again, you have to trust the history to the degree that you can, was that it was one of the legs in the Underground Railroad in the 1860s. And certainly, one of the things that we've tried to do better, and when you talk about communicating to residents, is we've tried to put some structure to some of these, whether it's the open space plan or just letting residents be aware that we're open for business. We're willing to talk to people. We want them to come to us. In many cases, these things aren't quick. They take time to sort of cultivate relationships and people to get trust with us that we'll do the right thing on those properties. And certainly the Duchy Church was one. Sometimes we don't know what we're exactly going to do with it. Lou and I, when we looked at it, we said, this is kind of neat. What do we do with it? Well, we're not sure, but we thought acquiring it was certainly the right thing to do.
Mini golf?
Mini golf, maybe, we don't know. Around the tombstones, we don't know what we'll.
No tombstone. Oh, the Duchy Church.
The Duchy Church has the tombstones. So that might be but that's more historical preservation, which was important. This one is a little bit more about green space and sort of deciding how that can best be aligned. We also have the 40-plus acres over on Fisher Road that we had an opportunity to acquire last year. And, again, that was a situation where a resident could have gotten more in the open market and came and said to us, and I said, well, they were willing to work with us. They were willing to sort of trust the appraisals and live with the appraisals. And that turned out to be another good transaction. To the point of how to best use the space, part of what our planning commission is doing presently is they're in the process of both documenting what we have, what we think we might need in terms of, when you start talking about open space, there's leave it green. There's let wildflowers grow. There's usable open space in terms of parkland, trails and things of that nature. There's active recreational use. We have Hebner Park with lots of fields. This is an opportunity maybe for some fields if that serves, the purpose of the community best. And part of what the Planning Commission is doing is trying to document that and give us some gauge of what we think we have versus what we think we might need. And, then we continue to just be ready when the next person might come forward and say, hey, I'm interested, and sometimes these things will cascade. Other times it might take a little longer, but, I'm really proud of the fact that we've had some opportunities. It's like you don't always get the opportunity. Usually, oftentimes you find out after it's been it happened, and then you say, well, why couldn't we have been involved there? We've seen it with neighboring communities as well. So certainly this was one that I was very proud of. The Duchy Church was another one, and I have to tip my hat to you in that you called the initial executive session and say, hey, maybe we should do something here. So collaboratively working together was another key part of that, certainly.
Mr. Chairman, the other thing sort of leaving out is regarding the old Duchy Church. It's in need of help, and the township acquired it. Knowing it, we'd have to fix it up, and we plan on fixing it up. We don't want to leave it there. We want to maintain the building, and I've been surprised since we purchased it, the number of residents have approached me about it. I didn't know they could use it even before, and it was sort of held by the Historical Society, but years ago, back in maybe 1976 through the 80s, it was a little used a little more, but our plan is to fix it up and then allow people in the township to have access to it on certain times. So that's our plan. We're not like going to let it sit there and go dormant and have problems with it. And I guess probably one of the next thing is approach one of the neighbors there, see if we can park in his sheep field. Well, do that.
Does anyone know who that is? I don't know.
I have to look to see who that is.
We'll have to
I'm
check
not quite
it.
sure who that is.
I'll have to check on that. But that'd be a nice connector to a trail as well. That's not too far from Hebner Park. So, food for thought. So, Wendy, what do we need to do in terms of the motion now that we've waxed poetic for a bit?
My office has prepared an agreement of sale, which has been executed by the seller. So it would be appropriate for you to make a motion to authorize execution of the agreement of sale for the property. Give me a second. It's situate at the northwest corner of Griffith and Valley Forge Road, being tax parcel number 670001795001, consisting of approximately 9.6 plus or minus acres with a purchase price of $595,000. So if someone would.
Okay.
State that you make the motion
As articulated?
articulated by the solicitor, I think that would be just fine.
All right, Lou, you're up,
We good? All right.
if you want to do it.
Make a motion that we approve everything that Wendy just said, the execution, I don't like that word, but the improvement of the agreement of sale for the Griffith property for $595,000.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that is on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Open space wins. All right. So I apologize, Nicole. I don't know if you can top open space, but we are now going to shift. As folks know, starting last month, Nicole gave a presentation. Today is sort of round 2 of a budget presentation, which ultimately is going to lead to an approval of a budget in our December meeting. So Nicole, I'm going to turn it over to you, and the floor is yours.
Starting with taxes, the budget includes no new taxes and no increase to existing taxes. Worcester Township's real estate tax rate is proposed to remain at 1/20th of 1 mil, which is presently the lowest municipal real estate tax rate in Montgomery County. I expect that we will continue to have the lowest real estate tax rate in 2024. For personnel, at this time, the Public Works Director doesn't believe an additional full-time laborer will be needed this coming year. Our current complement of full and part-time employees will meet our needs in 2024. We will review this issue again as we prepare the budget for 2025. For services, there is no substantive change proposed to the township-provided services in the coming year. So what we're doing today, we'll continue to do tomorrow. As to the general fund, first and foremost, this is balanced. At this time, the EIT, our primary revenue, is projected to receive $3.4 million in 2024. The budget includes $250,000 in real estate transfer tax in the coming year. $575,000 is projected this year. This number assumes the transfers of existing residential properties and no transfers of commercial properties and larger tracts of land, which historically have occurred on an infrequent basis. As to expenditures, health insurance premiums were received this week with a 1.6% increase. We are currently looking to lower the premiums with rate stabilization funds and are hopeful to keep the premiums at the level of 2020. The budget includes a 5% increase to our annual operating contribution to our volunteer fire department to $185,000. And there will be a capital contribution in the amount of $172,000. This number does not include the cost of workers' compensation coverage that is provided by the township, as is required by state law, nor does this number include the Act 205 pass-through aid to the Department's Relief Association, which is budgeted at $102,000. Lastly, the general fund will transfer dollars to the capital fund at the end of next year. This revenue will provide for needed capital projects like our annual road program. The transfer amount will be refined in the coming weeks as we adjust the budget to reflect receipt and expenditure estimates, but at this time, the transfer is projected to be around $707,000. For the capital fund, we'll undertake sizable capital projects in the coming year. At the top of the list is the annual road program. The township will continue to provide an augmented resurfacing program, which will help keep our roads in good condition, maximizing the useful life of the network. The capital fund will provide $656,000 toward the road program, which, when coupled from dollars from our liquid fuels fund, will provide $1.1 million in the road program in 2024. And remember, this doesn't include soft costs like design, bidding, and inspections. In addition, the capital fund also funds a sizable culvert replacement on Weber Road. Lastly, the capital fund will provide for the replacement of the public works vehicles and equipment that have reached the end of their useful life, including the replacement of a 2012 pickup truck and a 2000 dump truck. For the sewer fund, in 2017, the township contracted with a new wastewater operator, and since this time, operations at our 2 wastewater plants and 6 pumping stations are running very well. As to the sewer rates, the budget presently includes a 0.5% increase to residential rates in 2024, which translates to approximately a 2-cent per month increase for each home on the township system. A 0.5% increase to commercial sewer rates is also proposed. The sewer fund provides $65,000 for capital improvements throughout the coming year. For the state liquid fuels fund, the 2023 allocation was received earlier this month, and a total of $355,953, and it's approximately 1% higher than received this year. For many municipalities, the liquid fuels allocation is the annual road maintenance budget, but our community does not adopt this approach. Worcester does not assume that the annual liquid fuels allocation is adequate to meet our real road maintenance needs. As such, we budget additional dollars in the general fund and the capital fund to meet this obligation. Next steps, the township staff will continue to monitor our receipts and expenditures and make adjustments to the budget where warranted. We'll include new numbers when new numbers are received. The budget will be presented once again at the November 15th business meeting, at which the board will consider approval to advertise the proposed budget for the required public inspection period. The board will then consider the 2024 budget for adoption at its December meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm going to comment on just a couple of quick things, and then if any other board member has any comments on the budget, I want to touch first and foremost on no new taxes, ultimately, and just to confirm, we presently so if you pay, and I'll get these wrong, but ultimately if you spend $1 in property taxes each year, you're sending a penny to us. You know, we're making do each year with a penny on $1. You know, the bulk of that goes to the school district, and a small portion then goes to the county. You know, so having the lowest municipal tax rate in the county is something that we are proud of and something that we strive to keep year in and year out, and I'm pleased that this year we are keeping that at the lowest municipal rate in Montgomery County. We have a process with our budget where it is a living and sort of a living document, and it's a year-round process, ultimately. We've actually won awards for our budgeting process across the state because of the way we go about it, but at the end of the day, we are constantly looking to make sure where are we spending money, how are we spending money, and are we doing it, you know, in a sound and capable way, and I think we've done a great job. That's one of the areas, while we're not always perfect in our roles, certainly, as we hear from residents and remind us of that, and we strive to do better. Budgeting is one of the areas, and financial management is one of the areas that I think we do an exceptional job with. In terms of the staff, I think that it's, you know, managing the money is a hard thing to do, and we do an exceptional job with it. So certainly proud of those efforts in terms of that. Items like the liquid fuels, which usually pays for a lot of the road program, as Nicole said, we don't get the dollars that we used to get. So making sure that we put roughly $1 million a year in trying to make the roads better and safer and paved, and it's never enough ultimately, and the dollar doesn't go as far as it used to over the last couple of years in terms of that. But certainly we'll continue to sort of fine-tune the budget over the next month, and next month we'll make a decision to advertise, and then we'll look to adopt in December. So it doesn't start there, it doesn't end there, it's an ongoing pursuit. Does any other board member want to make any general comments about the budget in general, or just or even anything specific that you want to comment on?
Mr. Chairman, once again, as follow-up to your comments, to thank the Finance Department for a job well done. To backtrack a little bit, we do have an audit every year, and a number of months ago, B. Burwell came in and looked it over, and once again, gave us an excellent report as far as the money management within the township. we do have that close to $400,000 expense that we wish we didn't have, but we have to spend the money to fix the roads in Worcester. And we try to manage the finances the best we can, and it ties back to the open space. Everything's tied together. This is the business, much like you run your own personal business or your own household budget. We have certain things we do and certain things we can't do. Where we spend our money is a concern sometimes, and I think that these are the things we have to look at. We look at public works first and foremost, that they're the people out fixing the things within the township, you know, buying these new trucks to make sure they get the job done, as well as our contribution to the firehouse that is so important to public safety within Worcester. And we have to remember they are volunteers at the firehouse. They all have full-time jobs. It's tough to get people to do anything anymore, especially at the firehouse. To have the number of the people come out to volunteer for the safety of our township is very important. When I got involved here, it was suggested that the firehouse have more chicken barbecues to pay for the fire trucks, which was astonishing to me that my fellow supervisor would think that these volunteers need to go out in the roads in Worcester and collect dollar bills in their firemen's boots to pay for the public safety in the township. So we've worked with the township's worked with the fire department to try to come up with some kind of budgetary process that will allow public safety to be at the forefront in Worcester, which is very important, so.
Right, that's a good point, and more for your information for the audience, we've had, over the last several months, we've had a series of meetings with the fire department so that we could bake into the budget what the capital needs are going to be over the next 15 years. That was certainly one of the areas, and the idea being you put a few dollars away each year when those dollars are needed down the line. We've already taken the steps to do that, and to your point, part of that was to try to have structure in place that says we're making sure that that's being taken care of and in a way that works for them and works for us, because it's an asset to the community in terms of that. But we've had a series of meetings, and one of the outcomes was making sure that we allocated properly in the budget. And Nicole was nice enough to make sure we had the dollar correct and how many years and lay it out so that, you know, we don't, you know, we're not caught flat-footed 6 years from now because we didn't properly budget for something. So, Lou, do you have any comments on the budget that you want to share?
Sure, everything you just said, plus a few things. Nicole, wonderful explanation of everything, and I'm glad she keeps us in line. And it's like a Jimmy Stewart movie, It's a Wonderful Life, and we have more than $2 left at the end of that bank run. But in all seriousness, we have 2 firefighters, Battalion Chief Mark Travetti, and Cameron is also a firefighter. They do volunteer. They do everything, and our fire department is our center of our township that has over 100 members, and they do a wonderful job. Fire police also, so when you need them, and I'm glad we help fund them, so thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Lou. So there's no motion or anything needed on that, so we're just going to move forward. And again, thank you, Nicole. We look forward to next month's update on that. Next item on our agenda is other business. Does any board member have any other business that they wish to bring before the board tonight?
I'm good.
Okay. And then next item we have is public comment. Again, we do ask that you limit your public comment to 5 minutes. Does anybody have any public comment for the board? Christine?
Christine Steer, Worcester. I have two questions. One, with regard to the property that you mentioned purchase for the 595, how is that being financed?
We're writing a check.
Cool, okay.
Well, we looked at a variety. We actually,
I don't mean to be flip. I just know that when you bought the 40-acre property, there was a discussion of how that was, the financing of that, so I was just asking.
That's correct. So when we had the 40-acre parcel, there's 2 things that had changed dramatically. So one was that was a much larger acquisition that we did. So we actually did a financing on that particular situation, and interest rates were dramatically lower. So one of the things that we looked at this time around is that when we looked at the different sort of financing vehicles, it was not Economically, it was not a smart decision to finance that, was the final decision. And we ultimately said that we had the reserves to do that, so we're going to simply write a check for that, I guess is the oversimplified answer to it.
Yeah, okay, and thank you.
If I could just follow up on Rick's comment, it's just strictly a business decision.
Sure.
You know, we're borrowing the money to borrow the money, the bank's giving us nothing on it. We have the money in the bank, so the bank's making money on our money.
Sure.
So it was a simple decision to use our money to
Yeah,
finance
it's
it.
not,
right.
and it's not a criticism, it's just, I was
Right.
here at the last meeting
Yep.
when you discussed the 40, I was just curious, and it didn't come up in the presentation, so that was just a point of clarification. And the second question I had was, now that the township is, actively moving toward purchasing property for the 300 by 300, could you also perhaps consider thinking about hiring a dedicated Parks and Rec employee so that we can get some of our community programs up and running again, like Community Day, and movies in the park, with some of these larger properties, and I know you said that the Planning Commission is looking at, potential uses for these properties, maybe having concerts in the park, things like that, because I think that, I know Sean is very busy and you all are very busy, maybe if there was a dedicated Parks and Rec person that could kind of facilitate and spearhead these types of programs, that would be something that could be beneficial, especially with these new properties coming in. So I just would like the township to keep that in mind.
Sure, I'll actually make a couple of comments on that. The first is we actually have Community Day already set for next year.
Good,
We're
I'm
actually
happy to hear that.
we're already working on that. The staff has actually been putting together over the last few months sort of a theme in terms of what that's going to be. So we certainly recognize there's additional workload that happens when you have those sorts of things, but the staff is doing an exceptional job of sort of baking that into the day-to-day. Lou is actually spearheading the...
Spearheading, you like that word.
I do, because you're concerts in the park. He's more of a concert guy than a movie guy, but he wanted to,
I go to other townships and watch the bands play in other parks.
Exactly.
I mean, Skip Back, I go to Town Menson,
so that was actually an item that Lou pushed
year now.
aggressively for a year ago, and we're moving forward with that as well. But certainly, one of the, you sort of also touched on just sort of the hiring of somebody, and what I'll say is that, the board, looking at the structure of the township administrative staff and all that is sort of a never-ending process. And we've had, as you know, we've had somebody in that role in the past, and they've struggled to sort of find their footing for various reasons. We're in some ways we're a tweener, as a township. Like if you go and you have the different programs, some of them do well, some of them do less well. We've had full-time people, we've had part-time people, we've had people with different backgrounds, but it's sort of a never-ending, what's the right combination of individuals in terms of saying how much to allocate for salaries. That's, as a business decision, how much do you want to spend, and then what's the top priorities all the time. So short answer is yes, we'll always look at that because we think, we want to make the best use of the spaces that we have, but we're not waiting for that to do some of the things if we have the capability to do them as well.
And certainly, I'm not advocating spending money unnecessarily. I mean, I certainly think that there are ways that the township can accomplish these types of community-based activities without having to spend lots of money. And if Lou is the spearheading that. But I mean, one of the other things that, I've noticed other townships, you mentioned, Skip-Pack, for example, they actually have a community committee with, volunteer community members that work with their Parks and Rec department to brainstorm and come up with ideas, because, those people out in the community might be closer with the pulse of whatever's going on with, their neighborhoods and, kids and whatever, and bring these ideas to the township. So I'm glad that that's on your radar, because I feel like there's been some, lost opportunities since COVID to bring us all back together and celebrate being part of Worcester's community.
It's taken people a long time to remember how to socialize after spending 2 years indoors, and certainly those are, I know my wife would like me out to more meetings in the month, and certainly if I can have more subcommittees, we're going to sign you up.
Another subcommittee?
You can have a subcommittee,
What are we,
maybe two.
Washington DC now?
No, but look, there's always the delicate balance of community engagement. If we can get volunteers, that always helps to get people to sign up for things and participate in things. And it's sort of it would be nice if we could do more, always. I think we do a great job. on many fronts, but if more people want to volunteer and we can get committees together, that's always something to look at too.
Sure. Well, thank you.
Christine, as Rick mentioned, we've had them, people involved in the activities within the community, and they've used this as a stepping stone. It's amazing, I think the past two people may have gotten their doctorate here because of the township funding and the educational reimbursement. They came, and it's nice to have doctors on our staff. They're the most highly educated people.
Right.
And I think, and I said to Julie as she left that, you know, she studied on our time. She wasn't very busy. You know, she tried to bus trips with other townships, a failure. She tried to organize the basketball and things, and
Right.
we're a funny community, and I said that before, as a lot of people in Worcester go away on the weekends, and we don't have the kids, like a Lansdale community or a Skipback, we don't have the dense population and the apartments and things where the kids need the outside parks.
Right.
But this is part of our program. As Rick mentioned, the planning commission's involved in these larger pieces of ground that we bought, and we need someone to really spearhead it, and that's something we've discussed before, who's going to do it. The township staff overburdened with the work they're doing, and they're not really into that. You do have people that go to college and gets their degree in sports management or park and rec or something like that, and I think that's what the past people have had done.
Right.
They like that, and they know how to manipulate things and how to organize different things. Nothing that our staff can't do that, but if we did it, we try to find another person
Right.
that could really spearhead the organization and have some kind of interest in the parks.
Yeah, because I mean, as you know, I mean, the chicken barbecue is something that's very popular. The horse show that's here, the flea market that comes. I mean, you know, what Variety's doing with the holiday lights. I mean, there are some things that are community, but not not promoted enough, I think, and also not sponsored by the township. So like I said, I just think that there are, especially with the acquisition of all this property, there might be opportunities to develop opportunities to bring us all together. So I just wanted to raise
Fair
that.
enough.
Thank you.
Sadly, we got rained out with the horse show a couple weeks ago. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else have anything? Oh, Bert?
Bert Hines, Worcester.
Bart, you playing Santa Claus this year? Because you're getting big.
I am. They want me to be Santa Claus at the church bazaar.
That's good.
You hear a lot of folks come up here and they bring issues to you. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all three of you for what you did tonight with this Griffith Road property. I think it's a win for the township in the short term as well as in the long term. And it shows the foresight that you have and the commitment that you've talked about in preserving open space in this township. I don't know what will happen with that ground. Maybe nothing will happen with it for many years, and it'll just sit there and be green, and that's fine too. But I think it shows foresight. I think it shows a concern for the future of this township, and all three of you need to be commended for that. That's all I have to say. I want you to hear some positive feedback as well as sometimes the less than positive feedback that you get.
So Bert, I'm going to take your compliment and say thank you right back because I appreciate that. Because as the teacher you are, I thought you might give us a lesson too, or a task that we needed to complete thereafter. So I think I will take that compliment and say thank you.
Okay.
Just to, Bert, a follow-up to that, the people in Worcester that have land have approaches, and you know we've looked at evaluating other properties, and as Rick mentioned, it's not that easy to just go and, yeah, we want that property. We have to go through the appraisals, and we've been very fortunate that people, the landowners, recently have worked with the township. They could have sold it to a developer and got maybe double the money, or a lot more than we can pay them. So I think the people generally in Worcester are concerned about the heritage and the legacy, especially with the property right down here. You know, they could have got a lot more for that piece of property in Worcester than the township could afford.
I agree with you, Steve.
So we're very fortunate that we have concerned people in the township that feel the same way the board does. So
It's really a strategic move on your part given the proximity to this building and this property, I mean,
Right.
it's a no-brainer for many folks, but you might take some heat for it from some people, but I don't think so. I think if they're looking to the future, they'll know you've done the best thing you possibly could for this township. So thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any public comment for the board tonight? Bill?
Bill McRae, Stump Hall Road. All right, Bert and I are sitting next to each other, and we did not conference on this. I 100% back up what Bert just said. You guys have a season like the Phillies going on, knocking it out of the park, and I want to say thanks, and just not just the open space. Kriebel Mill Road has been closed for 30 years. There have been 30 boards who could have done something about it. Lower Marion has fords on roads where, you know, the bridge washed out, they still use it. So to take action on that shows the real concern for the community that you're putting forward. And it's not just tonight. I mean, you saw a problem at the school district with traffic and parking, and you got in there and really got involved. And sometimes it's not, it's a thankless job at times for you, I'm sure. And I just want to say thank you. You guys are really knocking it out of the ballpark.
Thank you, Bill. I'll take that one as well.
Are you gonna call me Schwarborough now?
Schwarbs? You're Schwarbs.
Schwarborough?
Well, today you can't be. 2 home runs. You had 2 last night.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? All right. Motion to adjourn.